Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney,
And I'm MK.
and how are you?
I am living in a world that is not real. That's what I
Dude,
that I'm telling
same.
you, being a teacher is not a real job. Like it is, but also it's wild. So it is Teacher Appreciation Week right now, which I got they brought in like donuts and bagels and danishes for us this morning and like both hot and iced coffee and a bunch of different flavors of creamer and it was all very lovely. And I got this cute little keychain for my kids. And when they gave me the keychain, he was like, "Don't worry, that's the small present." And I was like, "Oh dear God, what else is coming this week? I don't know." Um, and like Dan got to wear jeans today.
Ooh, party.
Because being a teacher is the wildest week. The one they're like, your job is so hard that we won't pay you, but we will give you a week where people give you presents to make you feel better about the fact that your entire life is a lie. Um,
Perfect.
and because then also on today, the first day of Teacher Appreciation Week, I had to uh, talked to my principal about kids whose parents are telling them it's okay to bring a chisel to school to take bricks out of the building to bring home with them to remember the school when it closes. Um, and teachers who just painted their classroom wall a mural without permission and like just wildly unhinged behavior that I am not sure how adults are okay with. And then there's the wildly unhinged behavior that kids have that no one is okay with, but no one really has a problem with because it's just how life works. Because I am, as a middle school teacher, trying desperately to understand Gen Alpha slang, and it is not going very well for me. Um, in terms of I understand what they're saying, but I wish I didn't. Like,
Mhm.
um, so I relate. I my favorite thing in the world right now are teacher TikToks where teachers are like what it's like to be a middle school teacher and they just say all the things that their kids say out loud and it's painful. Because every day, if one more kid asks me what the Sigma just happened, I'm gonna lose my mind. It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't even make sense.
Um,
What
I
are they
was
going to do when they get to college and all of the fraternities and sororities have sick men
They're not
then?
gonna make it to college. That's so cute. They're not gonna make it. Today, my eighth graders were playing a song, and the lyrics of the song said, "You're sticking your giat out for the Rizzler. You've got that skibbity. You've got that phantom tax."
I want you to also know that the Rizzler makes me think of the Riddler.
Yeah,
And that makes more sense than what's going on here.
correct. While they were playing this song on repeat for 25 minutes, I said to them, "Do you want to pass the eighth grade?" And one of them just looked me dead in the face and said, "Not really."
I mean, the school's closed, and what do they have left?
I got 29 more days in the and you know that meme that's going around from the Taylor Swift lyric where everybody's like, "You wouldn't last a day in the asylum where they raised me."
Mhm.
Middle school classroom. That that's it. That's the story. So I am both over caffeinated and underprepared for being alive today. How about you?
Well, you're doing a great job. You're doing fantastic. I'm also living in a world that doesn't exist. I change my plan every week. If you haven't noticed,
Yeah.
my life plan, which feels very extreme to change every week, but is what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so now I'm trying to decide what my next steps are again.
Yeah.
I might start my own publishing company.
Right?
I know how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, it just feels like a
Music
lot.
publishing or like book publishing? Because you
Music
could, I
publishing.
was like, because you could probably do either. It would just be weird.
I know
Like
a
it would,
lot less about book
yeah,
publishing, and I don't have as many of the skills. Like I could do some of the editing, but I couldn't. I don't know that I could do like
yeah,
developmental editing by my, like there's
yeah.
too many pieces I would have to hire out for. Whereas with music publishing, I think I can do all of the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Like I I have done all of the pieces over the past 8 years.
Yeah.
And so I might need like a refresher, and I might need like to call your mom and ask her questions about how math works. But like otherwise, I think I could do it. So, but then you need like capital, like blah 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 blah, all
Yeah.
the boring stuff
Yeah.
of running a business that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Um,
My dad the other day goes, you and I need to find time on your calendar because we really need to talk about a lot of things. And I like looked at him like this was also
is he
after,
disowning you? Like
listen,
how intense
this
is
was also
this?
after I found out about all of the deaths that I've been dealing with. And I just looked at him and he goes, and he looked at me like confused as to why I looked so distraught. And my mom goes, it's a business meeting. And I go, you don't have to say it so sinisterly. Like, I need to talk to you about a lot of things. Okay. That could mean so many things.
So
And
many
running
things.
a business is very difficult.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I already run one business, and this would just kind of like roll into it
yeah.
basically. Um, but I would then have to follow through and get more clients than the two I have,
Yeah.
which is important because I will not survive off of them by any
Yeah.
means. Bless their
No.
hearts, they're not there yet.
Yeah, no, I
It's,
own a business. Do I run it? No. No, I do not. No.
yeah. Um, and alternatively, or co, what is the word at the same time?
Concurrently?
Concurrently, thank
Mhm.
you. Concurrently, I might take the Louisiana bar.
I knew that was coming. You
Yes.
might not have known it was coming, but I knew it was coming.
I'm not thrilled. They did just change it during COVID. It's a lot less writing. Like New York bar, like my aunt was like, because she took it, but she
Yeah.
took it 8 years ago. And so they changed it 2020 to make it less writing. It's more multiple choice. And it was more like friendly to COVID times, I guess. I don't know. And she was like, yeah, I think they made it less writing to make it like on par with everything else. I was like, the New York State Bar was 75% essay. I wrote 32 essays, I think,
Yeah.
for the New York State Bar. And then I had like 100 multiple choice. Like that was oh, I guess we should give you some multiple choice too. Like I was like, I don't know where they backed up to meet because it was not New York. I could tell you
Yeah.
that.
Speaking of things that they've changed because of the COVID times, New York State has state testing that they do
Mhm.
for English and math every year from third grade to eighth grade. They had science testing, but they only made the science testing do like benchmark years, so fourth grade and eighth grade. And then they changed it to fifth grade and eighth grade because that's more on par with the way the curriculum is. And it used to be like a day of writing and a day of like hands-on things where you would like actually like walk around a room and do like four different stations of experiments. But then
Mhm.
COVID, so they panicked about that ever happening again and completely redid the test. And so for this year, for the first year, it's an entirely written test. The math and English tests are 2 days long, about
Mhm.
35 questions each, mixed between multiple choice and writing. We gave the kids a science test today, and none of us had ever seen the full science test because it's the first year we've ever given it. 72 questions for one sitting of a test for fifth and eighth graders.
That's insane.
I have never been so angry as I was trying to my one of my eighth graders looked at me. She was like, "Ms. Lodick, is this serious? This test has 71 questions." And I was like,
I didn't write it. That's what I would have said.
but the other thing is
Like what
my eighth graders take advanced science. So they're in a biology class. They don't take eighth grade science. And then they had to take a 75 question eighth grade science exam.
that's
I'm
so wild.
I'm testing post-COVID testing is fucking bonkers.
Yeah, it's wild. I kind of wish I would have been there for it because it seems like they've made all the bars easier since COVID. So, but yeah, I think that's on my horizon. So,
They've also gotten rid of the test I had to pass to teach in New York State too. So
so once you've like lost all of your like will to live, they're like, it's fine. Don't even worry about it anymore.
right,
You can
like
do
just
whatever you want. Like,
yeah.
yeah, when you're still a child and full of hope, they're like, we're bringing you down. But once you've passed that,
Yeah.
no. So because I'm considering all of these terrible things that I'm sure are the correct choices for my life, I need a little bit of a spiritual guidance. Also, before you get into that, I really love this color of lip that I'm
Yeah.
wearing.
Yeah.
I never would have thought to mix them until 2 hours ago when you were like, this is a combination of these two lips. And so I was like, I'm going to combine these two
Yeah.
lips. I love them. So thank you for your
You're so welcome.
actual guidance. So now I need some
Yeah.
spiritual guidance as well.
And just like the moon, you shall go through phases of light, of dark, and of everything in between. And though you may not always appear with the same brightness, you are always, always whole.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
My phases are week to week and not like the month of the moon. But maybe they'll switch gears and be more like the moon and just change every month.
My phases are like 28 in a day. So like
Yeah. You hit every moon cycle during the day. Love it. Oh, this one's me. This is my
yeah,
turn.
this one's you. We're talking about that show that you made me watch.
That
And-
show that I made you watch.
And today I felt very strongly that this was a show you made me watch because this was
I know.
fucking rough.
The whole time I was watching it, I was like, this is it. This is
Literally, Dan just kept going. He was like, I'm so sorry. Because Dan has actually seen the show
watched it,
before.
yeah.
He's watched the show before, so he was like, I'm so sorry. And then every time the like deaths would be on screen, he was just like, I love you. And I was like, thanks. 'Cause I'm struggling.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
So
Which is funny because remember how I was like, let's not watch that one show because the commercials seemed really gross. What the fuck is wrong with me?
here we are. It happens anyways.
Yeah.
Welcome to horror. So as you all know, we're watching Hannibal season 1. However, there is some discrepancy whether this is episode 4 or 5. And I had a little bit of a spiral today dealing with the situation. So there is technically another episode that we will talk about next week that is regarded as episode 4, but was not officially released until after this one. Because Brian Fuller did not think it was appropriate to release. And so it didn't actually get released until much later. I will go into more detail next week. So this episode is technically episode 5 in the grand scheme of creation of the show.
Yeah.
But in watching the show and in release dates and in how Amazon has it, this is episode 4. So we are talking about Cookie.
So what am I labeling it when I post the podcast?
Episode 4.
Okay.
I did put episode 4/5, but you should put episode 4.
Okay.
You should not follow my lead.
No. And in today's French translation, cookie is scallops.
Scallops. Yes. And it aired April 25th of 2013. It was rated 7.9 out of 10, which is fair. We had to bump it back a little bit.
Yeah.
The number 1 song was When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars. Great song.
I won't sing it for rights purposes, but
thank you. Appreciate. Maybe I'll play it over our TikTok. I don't know. We'll be talking. I probably won't play it. I'll play it over our Instagram maybe. I'm getting super cool with my social media. Just stay tuned. Our number 1 movie is Pain and Gain, which I have not seen, but I did learn is based off of a real like heist situation. I think there was some murder. I don't remember, but I listened to a whole true crime podcast that I want to say it was Wine and Crime, that did a whole episode about this.
Nice.
And it's absolutely bonkers. It's in Florida, just if that gives you anything. But it's Dwayne Johnson and I think Mark Wahlberg is in it.
yes.
Yeah, okay. And then if you listen to last week's, you will know our number one book is, or if you listen to Sci-Fi Sunday, you'll
Yeah.
know our number one book is Daddy's Gone a Huntin' by Mary Higgins Clark, which we assume is part of the same series of the one that was number one for MK's episode of Sci-Fi Sunday. Um, on this day, um, Virginia Gibson died, who was part of se seven brides for what is the name of this
Oh,
show?
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yeah, Seven Brides for Seven. But I always get the title
I was
wrong.
like, seven
I was like,
they
you'll get
invented?
it.
Like,
No, no. Amongst other similar things, she was in like Funny Face, stuff like that. Like that was kind of her prime era. Um, and it was also the 2013 NFL draft. So happy draft. Um, our director is Guillermo Navarro. I do not believe he had any relation to Dave or Dan, either of the Navarros. I know the Dan one. Love to know the Dave one. Love to be besties. We are
oh
not.
my God, I would love to lick something off of him.
Well, Dan is his cousin, I think, and he's always at Folk Alliance. So like, he's
Well,
just part of the crew.
if you could tell him that I would like to lick his cousin, actually don't.
I probably won't do that. I think it would be bad for my business. So I will probably just leave that on our podcast and tell them not to listen. So Guillermo is known for Pan's Labyrinth, Chronos, I Am Number Four, and Pacific Rim, along with many other sci-fi-esque shows and
I
like two horror.
love Panzer.
I haven't seen it.
It is, well, it's in Spanish. Um,
Is it?
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
yeah.
That's fine. I didn't realize it, but
Um, just so you know, it is entirely in Spanish.
so I will be turning on
And
subtitles for that.
wait, what did Guillermo Navarro do on that?
Um, I don't know. I think he was a executive producer
Oh, okay, because I was like, because
for
Guillermo del Toro directed it.
yes, and they're frequent collaborators. So they worked on a lot of stuff together.
Okay.
Um, also I think he worked on the Cabinet of Curiosities. He worked on a lot of this like big stuff that Guillermo del Toro did. So they're buddies. And
Oh,
he's
he was
also
the cinematographer for that, which is
that's right, the
holy cow,
cinematographer.
that movie.
So yeah,
Yeah.
because he started in photography. His son also does
Oh my God.
photography. And so he does have a lot of work as cinematographer, as director of photography, as,
Love
all
it.
these other
Love
elements.
it.
So
That's
yeah,
the only one of the ones that you said that I have seen, but it is,
I also have not seen any of those. I just know that they're all more sci-fi-esque than horror-esque.
yeah.
Um,
Pan's Labyrinth's kind of a little bit of both. Like
a little
it's,
both.
yeah, it's like a fantasy horror
Mm, that
weird.
makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's Guillermo del Toro, so that's
Yeah,
exactly
I
what it
mean,
is. Yeah.
that tracks.
But
I'm very familiar with Guillermo del Toro, so yeah.
in college, actually probably in the semester that was happening in 2013, in the fall of 2013, or sorry, spring of 2013, which is when the show came out. I I had to watch Spanish language films and write papers about them. Like, and I could pick whatever ones I wanted, but I had to be able to write a paper in Spanish about the movie that I watched in Spanish for my Spanish class. So I watched Pan's Labyrinth, and it was so good.
I'm glad that that was good because one, there are so many good horror films that are foreign films, and they are so bad. The like Spanish one, any of the ones that are in a Spanish language, the Mexican films are so weird a lot of the times.
Yeah, no.
Like I don't like them, any of those. So
No, I think my two favorite horror-esque foreign language films would have to be Pan's Labyrinth and Delicatessen, which is French.
I don't know that one, but I do like a French film. I like I got really into it was German.
Delicatessen would be a great one to talk about in terms of what we're watching right now because
Mhm.
it is a post-apocalyptic horror where the butcher and the apartment building is actually selling them all human meat and they don't know it.
Is it like influenced by
I
Sweeney
have no
Todd?
idea. I have no idea. It's a, like
No idea
it's
at
like
all.
a French movie, but it's also like it's a French film, so it's fucking wild, like crazy shit
Yeah.
is happening in it. But it's really good.
I understand that this is completely changing the subject, but I need you to know that the top of this note list that I keep that I was about to write down delicatessen on
Yeah.
starts May 6th. Um, or no, that's what today is. But it started back in 2019, like late 2019.
Yeah.
And one of the first entries is that I needed to remember the Pilgrimage Fest. If you go all the way down to my bottom of my notes from 3 days ago, I have now rewritten it because I had already forgotten about it and didn't realize it was the top of my notes. That is how my brain works. But
Yeah.
anyways, delicatessen is what I'm gonna write down.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of good horror films on um Netflix or TV shows. I haven't watched a lot of the films, but yeah, I think German and I think French were the ones I watched. And then
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of good Asian horror, but it's probably the most intense. So you have to like work
Yes,
yourself up
that's the
to
thing is Asian
it.
horror, while I know it's good, it is I can't, it's wild. It is absolutely wild for me. I can't
I
even
watched
I can't even handle network
Allison.
fucking television horror. How am I supposed to watch Asian horror?
I watched Alice in Borderland and I like Korean horror. That's usually it's really like psychological
Yeah.
usually, but it's not quite as intense as like Japanese horror.
Yeah,
Japanese
I
horror is
like
probably the most intense that I've
well, I
seen.
like a lot of K-dramas, like Korean dramas, but even their
Mm,
dramas are like weirdly supernatural. Like their normal, regular, like
yeah,
Thursday night love TV shows have like fucking ghosts and shit in them. Like it's
I
so
love it.
yeah.
I love it. But yeah, all that to say, I do like Guillermo del Toro, but I do think all of the ones that are like Spanish language ones that he does are super weird. I watched a film festival of his last year during October, I assume, or
Okay.
November, and it was so weird.
Let's not put him in a box. His English ones are fucking weird too, because I'm sorry, but The Shape of
They are,
Water
but they're
makes
really
God no.
good. Oh,
Yeah,
I
but
haven't seen that one.
The Shape of Water, it no.
So I watched
It
Cabinet of Curiosities,
yeah.
and it's weird, but it was really good and
Yeah.
weird. The
Oh
one
no, I
I
mean
watched, I
Shape of
was
Water
fine.
is like won a billion Academy Awards, like,
Mhm.
but like it's a love story. It's Beauty and the Beast, but with a fucking weird fish
Right.
man. Like I what?
Well, like the Mexican one wasn't good. It was like bad horror.
Oh.
So, but yeah. So now that we've gone down a rabbit hole of the wrong Guillermo,
Yes,
um,
sorry.
Guillermo Navarro is our director. Kudos.
Yes. Yeah.
The writer of the teleplay is Scott Nimerfro. It is Nimerfro.
Great.
Nimerfro. So
Yeah.
my lips just don't want to say that
Yeah.
letter. He is known for the 2000s X-Men, Pushing Daisies, Hannibal, and Tales from the Crypt, the 1995 one. I
Yes.
can't remember if they remade that or not, but
I
the
think so.
1995 one is the one he made for it.
Yeah.
He was also a co-executive producer in Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
So he's got some good credits. However, he did pass away
Oh
April
no.
17th of 2016 of angiosarcoma. No,
Oh wow.
angiosarcoma. I
No.
again cannot read my own writing, and he was only 54.
Oh.
So like Star Trek did like a homage to him. They did like a USS Nimmerfro, and then they did an homage in the Sisters episode of Once Upon a Time to him as well. So just a couple of things, which is very sad.
Yeah.
And our editor is Ben Wilkinson, who is known for Unnatural History, Aaron Stone, Lost Girl, and Life with Derek. Because she needed a wild card in there.
Life with Derek is the most like If you watched Life with Derek and shipped them, you watch step sibling porn. Like there's no that is the pipeline that goes to.
It does. I did like that show though, but it's the same thing with the Fosters.
See, I never watched The Fosters.
Mm.
It like came out
Yeah.
at like a weird point where I wasn't really watching a lot of TV and then I just like never got into it.
So that happened with me, but then I was watching with Rachel. It's actually a really good show, but
Yeah.
it has a similar esque scene, and it's just very strange. But yeah. And then so I looked up this guy, and there's just like not a lot about it. But I did find that he had a Twitter that has been inactive since 2016, 2017, although he seems fine as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And all that I could find was that there were a lot of people that were hashtagging Hannibal family. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like fan of Hannibal family,
I think
because
so.
because Brian Fuller he is the one who said it.
Yeah.
So like
No,
I guess
that
I
that
should have.
makes sense. There's a lot. So there when you start watching a show,
Mhm.
Google and its stalking capabilities do nothing but tell you things. And ever since we started watching the show, my Google like suggested news is just fucking articles about the show. But the thing that's wild to me is that they're not old articles about the show. They're all new because
Mhm.
apparently in the last like
I saw
three
that.
weeks, Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen have been like telling everybody that the show's coming back or some shit. Like I don't even know
Yeah,
what's happening.
I saw that.
I'm like,
They are on board for it for
yeah,
sure. So now in my TikToking ways, I'm just gonna hashtag Hannibal family for everything, I guess,
yeah, I love
because
it.
that's all I know. Um, and then our star of the week is Hetty Ann Park, who plays Beverly Katz, who plays the lab scientist that drives us crazy.
Oh, okay. Right.
So I don't
Wait,
know how we never knew her name.
yeah. I'm just confused because we haven't talked about Lawrence Fishburne yet. That's all.
Did we not?
No, this is only the
I don't
fourth
think
episode.
he's.
That's only the fourth episode. So we've done Hugh Dancy, we've done Mads Mikkelsen. Last week we did the girl who plays um the other doctor. So I just
Mhm.
assumed that today would be Lawrence Fishburne Day.
Oh, sorry, he was not next. I don't think. I
Oh,
don't think
that's
I skipped him on purpose.
that's wild. Okay.
Um, well, now I'm questioning everything I've ever done in my life. Um, yeah, he's not next. She is. So,
Great. No.
but then we should talk about him next week, though. So stay
Yeah.
tuned.
Okay.
He'll probably be next.
I just assumed that he would be listed higher because people know who he is and no one
I
else.
honestly thought I'd already talked about him because I knew who he was already. So
Right.
I'm just like, yeah, he's done. We did that
Okay.
one.
We're
But
good.
no. So,
Okay.
oh,
Cool.
it's Hetty Ann Park.
Okay.
She is known for Don't Look Up, which is a movie that I have not watched yet, but it is on Netflix and I keep wanting to watch it.
Okay.
So I will one day. Bride Wars and Young Adult.
Okay.
She's got a lot of credits that I'm like, oh, I've seen all of this. That's why she looks familiar, but I don't know her because they're different roles.
Yeah, and she's probably also just like that like
The
friend
friend,
friend
yeah.
five who's in the background of like one party scene that like kind of seems
Well, no,
like
she has like real
no,
credits.
I know, but like she's like that person who's like in two scenes who like kind of has a relationship to the main character, but not enough to have a backstory. So like
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, she got her degree in religion and econ from University of Rochester.
woo woo, you
Um,
are.
she is from
Been
Michigan,
to a
but she
lot of parties there.
to Rochester.
What? At the University of Rochester.
Yeah,
Yeah, U of R. Oh yeah.
yeah. And I did know that. I had said Michigan right before, and I was like, I don't think you've been to a lot of parties in Michigan.
No. Oh no.
Um, Also, fun fact, she's named after a swallow in a Korean fairy tale. It was
Oh,
actually supposed to be like Eileen or something Park, but
yeah.
someone already had that name in SAG, and so she went with her Korean version of that name, which was the Hedian Park.
I love that.
And so that's where she came up with it. Um, but yeah, so
Love it.
are you ready for this nightmare?
Sure. Why not?
Great. Because that's what we start with. We start with Will, who is sleepwalking barefoot down the street. And
With a
then,
with a fucking creepy CGI deer again.
yeah. And so then I was like, oh, maybe he's dreaming. Maybe this is in his head, even though I thought it was very real. And then 30 seconds later, police pull up in front of him. I was like, oh, I was still wrong. He was sleepwalking. I was right the first time.
Yeah.
And it turns out his sweet dog had followed him,
Yeah. Oh,
Winston.
Winston.
I know. And they're like, where do you live? And he's like, Wolf Park. They're like, great, that's where you are. Is this your dog? And he's like, what? No idea what's going on. Bless his heart. I am terrified that
And
I'm going to
then
sleepwalk one day.
they they said, do you sleepwalk often? He goes, I'm not entirely sure I'm awake right now. And I was like,
Yeah. No good, no good. And so then we go to Hannibal's house where Will has gone to talk to him because he's stressed.
yup.
And he's like, what do you think's wrong with me? What do you think's causing this? And Hannibal's like, I think it's PTSD. And like, you're super stressed out and you need to like chill out. Um, and then he starts
Weird.
talking about aggression and how like all of these things can be spurred by like PTSD and stuff. And he asked Will if he feels aggressive. Um, and he's like, what? This is crazy questioning. And then he's like starts going hard about Jack. And we've seen him kind of like blow off some things Jack said to Will, but this is like more blatant than he's been before.
Yeah.
That he's just trying to like get him to kind of turn against Jack. So then we go to this hotel and we see a man who's scooping ice and he is just like watching people as they walk by and like very frantic. So he's obviously going to be the killer.
Yeah.
And then we see a couple walk up and their heads just like light on fire in his brain.
I was like, are we watching a cheap Ghost Rider remake?
I know. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Because also, this isn't the greatest fire I've ever seen.
No, it literally looks like the Nicolas Cage Ghost
Yeah.
Rider movies.
Which was 2003. Like it was maybe 2002. It was a lot before this, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we get the credits. So we're back at the hotel after the crime has occurred. And we learn that the room was registered to a John Smith, obviously.
Which
And
I love that Will is offended that people aren't creative.
I know, I know. And so they go into the room, and it turns out this is the first time we see our victims. They are strung up, praying, and their back has been like flayed
Blade.
into wings. And they are just kneeling down like praying angels with their hands together and everything. So we learn that it could be religious, but also Will tells us that apparently this is also a Viking thing that they would do. We learn that
No, someone else says that. Will is still just staring at them. It's the guy. So Beverly is the chick, the guy who's always with them. He's the one who's talking about.
He's the one who said the Viking thing.
Yeah. He's
I was
the one
very
who's,
distracted by the scene.
I can't imagine
That
why.
I just must have picked a person in my brain to have said it.
Yeah, no, it was this is when Dan started profusely apologizing to me that I have to watch the show.
Yeah. And so we learned that our John Smith threw up in the middle of the night and his bed is still covered in sweat because he was apparently sweating the entire night. And I also wrote down, I don't know why I insist on eating lunch while watching this show because it seems every time I'm eating while I watch this show.
I had just finished dinner. I had just finished my dinner. I was like,
it was a rough one.
Yeah.
So he does his rewind thing and he starts telling us.
First he asks them to get him a plastic tarp so he can lay on the bed without touching the sweat. And that was gross to me.
It does. I don't think I would have done it. I think I would have tried to find a better way.
Yeah.
But he lays down and he starts saying that he saw them as angels and that's why they were there.
it was disturbing enough to make me never want to teach my kids the now I lay me down to sleep prayer. Like, because
That's fair. That's fair. But then we go to Hannibal's house and he is feeding Jack. And I said, and Jessica from Suits, her name is Phyllis here.
yes.
And they are talking about an ethical butcher conversation because turns out that Phyllis is not for the cruelty of animals and they're
Yes.
having
Foie
yes.
gras. They're eating
Yes.
foie gras. Now, this, if you guys remember last week's podcast, I told Courtney that I was going to have a conversation with her about the whole whether he's feeding them human meat or not. This conversation and the way he was talking about the food, and I know the whole, oh, I have an ethical butcher and like it's Hannibal, blah, blah, blah. But the way he has like all the different kinds of food prepared and the way he's like so careful about like certain things, I don't know that he would just feed human meat to everyone. Like it doesn't feel like it feels like he also just genuinely loves food, like and cooking. And so
I get that.
I'm not
I
sure about whether I know obviously he is eating it, but I'm not sure about the whether he's serving it to other people or not part.
I agree. I get that. I feel like that's part of his game.
Which is
Know?
fair, which is fair. That's why I said
Mhm.
I'm not sold 100% because also foie gras is disgusting. I'm sorry. I've tried it. I don't love it.
What's the other one that's like it?
Pate.
I've had pate. I don't think I've had foie gras.
Foie gras is not good. I just don't like it at all.
I may have had it. I don't know. We had a lot of similar-esque dishes at the last couple of conferences I went to. Because we just
Yeah.
tried random things.
I'm trying to remember. The foie gras I had was at like I went to when I was in Thailand, I went to like a high tea, like a British high tea for like my birthday, and one of the little tea cake
Mhm.
sandwiches was like a cracker with foie gras on it, and I was like, never again.
I may have had it. What's in it? Do you remember?
Foie
Like,
gras is like duck liver, maybe? No, that might be what is pet. What is foie
no,
gras?
I've had pate. Then it's
Yeah,
the
it's
one
duck
that's the
liver.
raw
No,
meat.
foie gras is duck liver.
Okay, that's not the one I've had then. I've had the one that's the raw meat one. That must be the pate.
Um, I don't know. What is pate made with?
I
Well,
think there's different kinds of it.
pate can be a lot of things, but foie gras is
Yeah.
usually um
Hmm.
cooked without. No, it's cooked.
Okay, that's not the one I've had then.
Are you
I don't
thinking of
like
like
liver, and I don't really.
tartare? Are you thinking of like
Yes,
tartare, beef
yes,
tartare?
I
Yeah.
am.
Okay.
That is the
No.
one I had.
Yeah. Foie gras is duck liver. Pate is a liver paste that can be made with anything, but it's often also duck. Foie gras is processed
Mhm.
duck liver. I like cooked liver. Like I like chicken liver, I like beef liver. I like cooked liver. I don't like pasty liver. I don't like the processing, and the foie gras is just mm-mm.
See, I don't like liver, and I don't really like duck,
I
so
love duck.
that would not be for me probably.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and that's the thing. I like duck and I like liver, but no,
mhm.
not.
So yeah, so he's having this dinner with them, and he's talking about, no need for unnecessary suffering, like that's so crazy. And then he tells Phyllis how nice she smells and like immediately names her perfume. And we learn he has a good sense of smell, which was
But
apparently something that's known in the movies and books, but I just
yeah, yes, no, it
wasn't
is.
into that.
But what he specifically says, which is the key to the scene in his
Mhm.
sense of smell, is that in high school he knew his teacher had stomach cancer before the teacher did.
Mhm.
Which to me, having such a good sense of smell that you can smell cancer is fucking
You're
wild.
and you're wasting your talents if that's not what you're using it for.
Right.
Like, come on, bro. Save lives.
I saw a TikTok video of a German Shepherd that like used to be a police dog, and this guy was reading his shopping list, and just to fuck with the dog, he was like, eggs, chicken, milk, cocaine, and the dog went with his head up. And I was like, and so like if you have that good of a nose, either be a drug dog or work in a hospital. Like,
Yeah.
That's
and
it.
not as a therapist. Like you're doing the
Yeah,
wrong part of the job.
correct.
So then we go to the lab, and Beverly says a quote that I didn't really pay attention to. And the guy, the lab
Oh,
tech guy,
no, that was a
he
really good
says,
quote too.
it was a really good quote, but I didn't write it down. And he says Robert Frost, and Will says Jim Morrison. And then I meant to look it up and see which one it
Yeah.
actually was. I'm
No,
sure it was Jim
it
Morrison.
was Jim Morrison.
I'm sure it was. Um, but yeah.
Death makes angels of us all and gives us wings where we had shoulders smooth as raven claws.
Hmm. Yeah. And so we learn that the woman lived 15 minutes after she was skinned, which is the most horrifying thing. Um, and this is where Will starts doing his analysis, and he says that they were praying to him. It wasn't that he was trying to be like their idol or whatever, but they were praying for him. And then they're talking more about it, and they're like, okay, what drugs was he on? And it turns out that he has a brain tumor. He had like chemotherapy in his system. He had a couple other things in his
He had an
system.
anti-seizure medication and a
Yeah.
radiation sickness medication, and then something from the chemotherapy. So
Yeah.
that explains the sweating and the nausea.
Right. And Will says it's not that, they're praying for him because he's afraid of dying in his sleep.
Yeah.
And so he's putting angels to watch over him at night.
Well, okay, but also, so the whole now I lay me down to sleep thing. I that actual, if you think about it, is terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Now
I
I
thought
lay
about it
me
like
down
last
to,
year.
yeah, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. You're literally, which is great. I hope if you die in your sleep, you go to heaven. Like,
Right.
yes. But teaching kids every night to be like, I'm going to go to sleep and Jesus is going to watch me. And if he doesn't, hope I go to heaven when I die in my sleep. What?
Right. Like I said that at like 3 and 4. Like,
Yeah.
why am I pretending like I might die in the middle of the night? That's not a fun game of make believe.
No, I don't like this game. I quit.
I don't like them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now at 31, when I feel like I'm dying every day, sure. If I die in my sleep,
Right.
please take me. But like a little less likely at 4.
Right.
Um, so then we go to Hannibal's office, and Phyllis has gone to see him. And we very quickly learn that she is cheating on Jack, which is a bummer.
See,
Um,
I didn't think that.
you don't think she's cheating on him?
No, she's not. They never,
Oh.
well, she's not, but they never say that that's what's happening. They just said, how often do you go to see him? And enough to make it stop,
Oh.
enough to not want it to stop. When are you going to tell Jack? He doesn't need to know. It's all very talking in circles around
Mhm.
it. But even in that moment, I thought it was something different. Like I didn't think it was cheating. It didn't seem like cheating. It felt like too impersonal to be cheating.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
knew
and I did think it was very impersonal. I thought it was like I don't know. I don't know exactly what I thought, but it wasn't like,
Yeah. Yeah, but if you watch that scene again and you listen
Mhm.
very carefully to the dialogue, it is very, very strategically not specific what she's doing.
That makes sense. Because then she says she goes to maintain her dignity, and that she says Jack, and then she does say Jack has too much to worry about her. And so like it is clear that there's something going on with her.
Yeah.
And I thought that she was using this like as an escape. But not necessarily. So she does say she wants couples therapy, and Hannibal's like, no, like I can't do that.
But he
Um,
also, he interestingly doesn't say it's because he has a relationship with Jack. He says it's because now that she's his patient, she'd have the home
mhm.
couch advantage. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
the proper way to be.
Well,
Like,
especially because if he now has this secret of hers,
mhm.
how can he treat them as a couple while
Right,
harboring the secret?
right. So he's doing the ethical things.
Yeah.
Um, so then we go to the library, and Will and Hannibal are again discussing the killer. And Will's talking about how the killer feels abandoned, and that's why he's, acting out or whatever. And Hannibal asks if Will feels abandoned because he just keeps asking him if he feels like the killer in different ways.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you abandoned by Jack?" And like the FBI, like they've just left you to like deal with this emotional turmoil yourself.
Yeah.
And Will is immediately catches on and he's like, "Stop trying to alienate me from Jack." And like it's still sinking in, even though he's aware of it, which is how it works. No, you can,
Yeah.
even if you know it's happening, if they say it enough, it still
Yeah.
sticks in your head
Yeah.
because that's how that works. So then we go back to Jack and Phyllis, and Jack wants to talk because he can tell that something is wrong. And he does seem to really want to help. He's like, "I will do whatever you want. Like, if you want, like, as a husband, as like a friend, whatever. Let me know
Yeah.
what I can do." And she just is kind of like blowing him off. Um, and then he says he wouldn't insult her by asking if there's someone else because he also truly doesn't think that there's someone else because she does love him. Like,
Yeah. Well, and
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 it's
and
that's clear.
her reaction to that confirmed what I thought was that it wasn't anything to do with that because she didn't look the kind of guilty where like you caught me. It was the kind of guilty where like you love me so much that you don't even question that my isolation could be because of you. You love me so
Right.
much that you think that whatever I'm going through, it can't possibly have to do with our relationship, and that hurts even more.
Right. Yeah. Um, but yeah. And then we go to that. Sorry, we're
Okay.
snacking a lot
It's
this
because
episode.
it's
Sorry.
midnight and we're both trying to stay awake, so we're like eating to keep
I know.
ourselves awake.
Yeah. So we go to the alleyway and we see a quick flash of our guy, our killer. And then we go flash over to Will, who's now staring up at our new guy who has been strung up and murdered. And so
Oh.
here we go. And then we're looking around all the pieces of our puzzle we have, and they learn that someone's been castrated, but it has not been the okay. I was making sure Rachel didn't anything. She doesn't. She's telling me about my stain on my shirt. So it turns out that the guy that strung up has not been castrated. And so they come to the only other logical conclusion that our killer has castrated himself. And Will says that it's because he's starting to become an angel because he's trying to kind of like take control of the situation.
Yeah.
Um, and then, huh?
This scene I want to talk about for a second. I
Okay.
because you guys know me whenever it talks about Bible things, I get really involved. Um, but I really appreciated that Will was immediately like, well, he can't be talking about biblical angels because they don't have wings. And I was like, thank you. Because everybody like shows these angels and shit. But like if you actually read Bible stories of when angels appeared to them,
They're
to people,
terrifying.
well, no, no, no. There are certain like angels and angelic creatures that are described early in the Bible that are genuinely terrifying, like the Nephilim and stuff like that, horrifying.
Mhm.
But like whenever an angel appeared to a person as a guardian or a guide or a messenger, they confused them for a human. Like
Yeah.
when Gabriel and Michael and have like appeared to prophets or to Mary and anytime in the Bible, they think it's just a man talking to them.
Right.
They have like a nice glow about them, but they're not like, oh. When they say like the heavenly host, that's when you see the crazy shit. But like just angel, it just looks like a fucking person. And so
Right.
like he's like, no, no, no. Biblical angels don't have wings. But then he goes, also they don't have genders. So, and
Right.
I was like, well, you might be a psychopath, but you have in fact read the Bible.
You do know what the Bible says, correct? Yeah. So, but this killer may or may not have read the Bible, so we don't know. And
I'm gonna lean toward no based on some of the other conversations.
yeah, me too. And also this is the scene where Will snaps at Jack. Um, Jack tells him, he's like, I'm gonna pretend like I didn't hear that. Or he's like, I didn't hear that, did I? And Will does apologize. But like this is where you
Well,
first
oh,
start
because
seeing.
Jack asks him, he's like, "What is the profile like with the new
Mhm.
things that are happening? Like, what is their profile?" And Jack's like, "Oh, Will says he doesn't know," and he's like, "Well, you're the head of the behavioral unit. You fucking tell me."
Yeah. And that's where you can kind of start seeing the exterior crack that Hannibal's
Yeah,
kind of been like diving into to be like, he's doing all these things to you and starting to get with Will.
yeah,
So we go back to the lab and Beverly's checking in with Will. And she's like, are you okay? She's like, I know that people don't really ask that enough. And like, we're not okay, but like in the most sense that you can
yeah.
be
She's like,
okay.
nobody could do this job and actually be okay. So like, if
Right.
you're if you the standard
Mostly okay.
if the standard deviation of okay changes, like, you can
Yeah.
talk to me.
Right. And we also learn at this moment that the couple who were killed were on a most wanted list and that they themselves were not good people. Um, and shortly after, the results come back that the alley angel was also a convicted felon. And he had like dressed as a security guard or something, but he wasn't really. And so they're talking about it and they're like, okay, so now this guy is making angels out of demons. And it's like there's something coming to him to tell them that these people are bad, which is
Yeah.
what they're saying is in his head, but is also somehow translating correctly. So then we go back to Hannibal and Phyllis. And Hannibal says, he's like, Jack doesn't believe that you're unfaithful. Like, that's even if you told him that that was the reason, he's not going to believe that.
Yeah.
Um, and then she starts telling us that she has cancer
Yeah.
and how terrible it is.
See,
And
and I thought that from the beginning because of the comment about him being able to smell it on his
mhm,
gym on his teacher and then her choosing to go talk to him. I was assuming that that was what was happening to begin with. So I was glad that I was right.
I thought I didn't know if it was going to be cancer, but I thought it was something like a sickness that was wrong with her, but I
Yeah.
just wasn't sure exactly what. But cancer is the most logical based on all of the
Yeah.
pieces.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and she's like, she just can't come to terms with it. So then we go to Will's house and we see that it's 5 a.m. He cannot sleep, but also it seems maybe he's just scared to sleep. We are
Well,
somewhere
no,
in
first we
between.
see it says 2:02 and he can't
Mhm.
sleep, and then it says 5:03 and he finally closes his eyes. So he
Yeah.
laid there for 3 hours just like not
Mhm.
not doing it.
Yeah. And then after he's closed his eyes, he wakes up to barking, and it's because he is standing on his roof. And his dogs are at his window barking at him
Yeah, because
because it's a crazy thing to do.
they're all terrified.
Yeah. So then we go to Hannibal and Will, and they are talking back and forth again about Will sleepwalking, and they're talking about the
Yeah,
killer. And we see that Hannibal has a deer statue in his office, which again, a little shady for someone who's
right.
not involved. And then
Yeah, that
Hannibal's,
I did not love that.
yeah. So then Hannibal starts saying the angel maker, which they call the killer, will be destroyed by what's in his head because we know that he has the brain tumor. And he's like, he tells Will, but you don't have to be. And
Yeah.
this, we kind of talked about this. You talked about it a little bit in the last episode where you were saying, it doesn't seem like Hannibal wants him to ruin himself. Like he's trying to really keep him from going over the edge. And this just kind of like
Yeah, and whether that's
reinforces it.
right, and whether that's for Will's sake or for other people's sake, Hannibal sees that Will is not a person who should lose control of their mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he smells him. And I just laughed. And I get
And
I get that like
I laughed because not because he sniffed him, but because they addressed it in a way that they don't usually. When somebody like creepily
awkward.
sniffs you, when somebody like creepily sniffs you on TV, they usually just like linger on it to be creepy
Mhm.
and move on and like don't address it. But Will just goes, "Did you just smell me?" And I was like, "Thank you. Thank you."
Yeah. And they discuss his aftershave, and he's like, you might want to try a new one. He's like, it's a Christmas present.
Also, it was so mean. He was like, your aftershave smells like it comes with a bottle with a ship on it. And as someone who exclusively uses Old Spice deodorant, I took that offensively.
I love it. Yeah. Well, he has a very elegant sense of smell, I
Yeah.
guess. Very high class. So we're back at the FBI office, and Jack and Will are interviewing the angel maker's wife. Um, it turns out that she left him because he just kept saying he wanted to be alone. And she didn't know what else to do. She thought like that eventually that the cancer would get to his brain far enough that he would need someone to take care of him, but he just never came back. She said he
But
was angry, but he was never violent.
but it was really sad in that moment because the way she was describing her husband, like Jack figured it out.
That's what tipped him off. And we learned that he has kids who don't understand why he left. And we also will ask about his religion, and it turns out that he was never religious. So
Yeah.
this is something that was stirred up.
The only thing that he ever talked about in his life that had any kind of like religious element to it was that he almost died as a child, and everybody
Mhm.
always said he had a guardian angel, and he kind of fixated on it.
Yeah, and that's also probably why he sees people on fire.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so then we go to his farm because the farm that he may have killed, like almost died in.
Yeah.
And so Jack and Will go inside to find that he has now made himself an angel, which has to be the most god awful thing. Like
Yeah.
this man has flayed his own skin, tied himself up,
How does that
and then
even
just
work?
how do you not pass out from the pain? I guess I don't know. He's got a brain tumor, so maybe he can't feel pain as much, or maybe
Maybe.
he's
I
I don't
don't even
know.
know.
But Will says he doesn't, and then so they're talking about it, and Will's like, "Well, obviously this is the last one. This is our guy, so he's not going to kill anymore." And then he
Right.
starts talking about how he doesn't know how much longer he can be helpful because it's everything's really taken a toll on him. Um, and he's saying he might unravel soon. But Jack says basically get it together and get over it,
Yeah.
which
And
isn't super helpful.
he's like, I'm not your dad. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you want to quit, quit. But if you don't, but he's like, but you don't. So like,
Yeah.
stop.
And then we get back into Will's head and we see Elliot coming down from his
Hmm.
strung up, and he's coming towards Will, and then Will's head the whole time is on fire, which
Yeah.
is it a symbol for what's to come, or is it a symbol of how Will sees himself?
I I don't know. I think that's a great question, but I think it really is a symbol of how Will sees himself because the whole time we've seen that the biggest thing Will struggles with is the fact that he sees himself as one of these killers, and the only thing that stops him from doing it is like the empathy he has for the victims too. And so he's like 100% torn all of the time
Mm-hmm.
in whether he is relating more to the victims or to the killers. But like his biggest issue, the reason he's having these nightmares and the reason he's having these things isn't because of the seeing the victims. It's because of the way he feels about the killers and like
Mm-hmm.
killing Hobbs has been like eating at him.
Yeah. Yep. So now we're back in Hannibal's office, and Hannibal and Phyllis are finishing up their session. As they open the door, Jack is there, and he says, "We need to talk." And he starts telling her how he realized that she had cancer. We learned that she learned about her lung cancer 12 weeks ago, but didn't know how to talk about it, wasn't planning on talking about it. It's stage 4. Um, and she says that she doesn't want chemo.
Can I tell you how hard it was to be sitting next to Dan on the couch watching this conversation? That was this show I know it's gonna like fuck with me in the like horror sense, but that conversation was so heartbreaking. And
Mm-hmm.
when he said, how did he say? Um he said that he was there for her and she said, "Oh, well, we're gonna beat this thing together." And he said, "No, baby, it's all your fight, but I'm in your corner." And she said, "I know, I appreciate that, and I know you want it to be a comfort to me, but I
Yeah.
don't feel comforted by it, and I can't give you what you need." And he said, "Right now, it's not what about what I need." And I'm literally just
So
sobbing
sad. Yeah.
sobbing. I like at the end of the episode, I literally like looked at Dan and I was like, I promise I will never keep anything from you. I will never need to talk to somebody else about what I'm going through that is not you. Like I was like, that fucking broke me. And then the next scene, the last scene, it doesn't make it any fucking better.
No, Jack is sitting in his chair, just like thinking by himself, and Will comes in and he's going to talk to Jack, and Jack's like, I don't want to talk. And Will's like, you don't have to, but I'm gonna sit here until you say something. And he's gonna make him talk. The same way as Jack was like, I'm gonna make you talk. Like, we have to
Yeah.
do
When
this.
when when Will was like, I know we just got into a fight and we're both like high-tempered people, but like you're hurt and I will be
Mhm.
here until you are ready to share that hurt with someone. And I was like,
Yeah, I
I hated
know.
it. I hated it. I didn't want to feel feelings. At first, I had to watch people's backs literally get flayed into fucking pieces, and then I cried about like losing your love, like your spouse to cancer. What the fuck is wrong with this show?
We're on episode 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Do you have any thoughts, feelings?
Well, I have a lot of feelings. But my thoughts are more about the fact that I appreciated that they moved away from the Hobbs story without really entirely isolating it. Like they still had the deer element, they still had the self-doubt element, so it didn't like shut that down in terms of like, all right, cool, we tied up that storyline for a minute, let's move on. It's still lingering, but it's not gonna like
Yeah.
overwhelm the storyline. So I
Mhm.
really appreciated that. Um, I did, because I knew that there was some confusion with these episodes, I did wonder if how what pieces of the overall arc will be confusing because of these two episodes and what pieces of the episodes are just story of the week stuff that can be forgotten about. So I'm really curious
Mhm.
as to what next week's recording is like. Um, I just want to cry. If Phyllis dies this season, I will be very sad. I think she
Yeah.
will,
I also
but
think she
I
will.
but I really don't want it.
I know. I know. And I love that actress. We'll talk about her at some point too, because
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's fair, all of those feelings. I have a little bit of trivia for you.
Great.
Um, when she says, when he says, "Are you Isabel or Annabelle?" Whenever Jack calls her Bella, and she says, "I'm a Phyllis," that is meant to be like a correlation to The Shining. When he says, when she says that, when he says she's Winifred, he goes, "Oh, are you a Winnie or a Freddie?" And she says, "I'm a Wendy." And so it's just a parallel with
Got
that.
it.
The angels are modeled after the police officer in the 1991 movie,
Okay.
the Silence of the Lambs movie.
Okay.
And then also when he makes the remark about aftershave
Yeah.
to Will, that's similar to the conversation that's had in Red Dragon, the 2002 movie.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of crossover here.
Yeah.
Do you want to punch anyone in the face?
I mean, usually, I think this week it has to be Will, just because he is letting things get to him and then blaming it on other people.
That's fair. Um, I had a hard time deciding this week
Yeah, this one was really difficult to decide this
because,
week.
like, I wanted to punch a lot of people, but I also didn't want to punch those people most of the time.
Right. Like I wanted to punch
Um,
Jack when he told Will to shut up, but then also like that is the worst
right.
thing to be living with, like of course. Of
Yeah.
course
And
you're
like I wanted to
angry.
punch Phyllis for not talking to Jai, but also like she has stage 4 cancer. So
Right.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Hannibal
Valid.
for trying to manipulate Will.
Everyone, yeah.
Oh, everyone also, yes. So who's your MVP?
I think my MVP is gonna be Jack because he did the absolute right thing to not only be there 100% for his wife, but he didn't get angry. Like he was disappointed that she kept it a secret because he wanted to be there for her, but he wasn't angry at her for not telling him. Wasn't angry at her for not wanting the chemo. As much as it broke
Mhm.
his heart, he was like, it's not my body, it's not my fight, it's not my sickness. I will do everything I can to love you through it, but it's you who's fighting. I'm like, I that was really, really important for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really beautiful. And I mean, Lawrence Fishburne's always really good at those really emotional
God,
themes
yeah,
too.
that was
That's
amazing.
like his bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am gonna go with Elliot's wife, the killer's wife, because she
Mm.
gave them everything they needed. And
And
really, I mean, it didn't stop anything because, he
yeah.
killed himself next, but she was like really doing the most and trying to help
Yeah,
and
and she was
put up with a lot.
upset as she was about it and as like heartbroken as it was, rather than being like horrified at the things he was doing, she was disappointed in herself for looking like a bad wife for walking away from him when
Hmm.
he clearly needed help. And so yeah, she was also like a solid person.
Hmm. So I really liked her. Do you have any predictions for next week?
No, I'm so confused. I did also accidentally see the description on Amazon of the episode, and so
Mhm.
my biggest prediction is that I will not enjoy it.
Yeah, I also read the description because of my confusion with today.
Yeah.
And I also think you will not like the episode. And I don't know that we're going to touch on a lot of stuff we've been talking about. I don't know that we're going to touch on the Hobbs story. I don't think we're going to touch on,
Yeah.
Phyllis or anything. I think it's going to be kind of a new intro, like a new thing we do.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting, if not horrifying, but we'll see. So, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch, you can email us, deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And you can find me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar. And I would just like to leave you all with this thought, because once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. Root
I hate this
beer,
already.
root beer tastes like Abraham Lincoln looks.
I can see it.
Yeah.
All right, well, get ready for a horrifying next week. So, seems both episodes are going to throw
Yeah,
us
both
for a
episodes are
loop.
going to be rough.
So, I need to, I'm going to have so much alcohol on Thursday,
Yeah, it's not
but
going to
it's
be a good
fine.
time. It's going to be
So,
great. Bye.
it's going to be great. Bye.